My my article today is thousand. Well, you know what they say, if it bleeds, it leads. So I
Hmm.
had to have something that wasn't dry and policy related this morning. My article is Thousand Oaks woman convicted of killing man during cannabis-induced psychosis. The Thousand Oaks woman has been convicted of fatally stabbing a man during what prosecutors called a cannabis-induced psychosis in 2018. Bryn Spector, 32, fatally stabbed Chad O'Melia, a man who she had been dating for several weeks, back on May 27th, 2018, according to prosecutors. On that day, Spector went to O'Melia's apartment in Thousand Oaks, where they took multiple hits from a bong loaded with marijuana. A statement from the Ventura County District Attorney's Office said. Spector had an adverse reaction to the marijuana and suffered from what experts call cannabis-induced psychotic disorder, a statement noted. During that psychotic episode, Spector stabbed Mr. O'Melia multiple times, killing him. She also stabbed herself repeatedly. Police officers sent to the apartment the next morning found Amelia lying in a pool of blood with Spector screaming hysterically with a knife still in her hands. Before the officers could disarm her, Spector is said to have plunged the weapon, a long serrated bread knife, into her own neck. Before they were able to finally disarm Spector of the weapon, officers used a taser and several baton blows, the statement said. Amelia was pronounced dead at the scene by paramedics. As a result, she was convicted by a jury on Friday of involuntary manslaughter. Spector is scheduled in court again on Monday for special allegation charges and enhancements for the incident. Special allegations include use of a deadly weapon, serious felony versus a joking felony, crime involving great violence instead of minor violence, violent conduct indicating a serious threat to society, and use of a weapon during commission of a crime. This was a hard fought case where the victim's family had to wait a long time for justice, and I'm grateful for the jury's verdict, said Senior Deputy District Attorney Audrey Naffinger, who prosecuted the case. This is Yaro Kubrin, High at 9 News. What do you think, Jason? Am I just chasing headlines because it's salacious? Or do we have real medical issues to unpack here?
I didn't realize you drove an ambulance, Yarrow.
I drive a whambulance
Yes,
because I
because
usually go for whomever's crying.
this is a total ambulance chaser article right here, 100%. Just because the fact that she took a couple bong rips, I seriously doubt that put her into any type of psychosis. I'm not buying that for a second. I don't know anyone that has taken two bong rips and been in a psychosis ever, unless they're dabbing substances other than cannabis. I have seen people that have done like that K2 and that spice and stuff like that. When they will take bong rips of that, they'll immediately pass out and like do some crazy stuff that they don't have any recollection of doing. And so I wonder if it's really actually something like that this person consumed, and law enforcement just isn't adverse enough to figure out that it is actually another substance.
Yeah, I mean, I always go back to my on the one hand and on the other hand thing, right? I remember when Dan White killed uh killed a supervisor in San Francisco City Hall,
Hmm.
and then used what was called the Twinkie defense at that point,
Yep.
that he had eaten so many Twinkies that he had the inability to know right from wrong, and the Twinkie defense was born. And we were I think a lot of people were upset that that defense allowed that murderer to avoid greater responsibility for the killings that he committed. So I'm not a scientist. I don't play one on TV. I'm not a molecular PhD guy, and I can go into peptides and nucleides and terpenes, and then
Hmm.
back to cannabinoids. But here's what I do think. I think that it's a defense that doesn't resonate with the accumulated anecdotal knowledge that I think I understand. They said that she was sitting in the blood like the next day, right? And so
Hmm.
a couple bong rips wouldn't have lasted
Exactly.
uh that
Exactly.
long. I had flashbacks to that TV show Dexter on
Oh,
HBO,
that was a
and
great
this
show. That was actually
great
on
show.
Showtime.
Okay, it was even better on Showtime.
There we
And
go.
so and so I just this notion that I mean, clearly this person needs some help, but we're seeing this cannabis defense. We saw it with the gentleman who tried to turn off the airplane engines and then blamed it
Oh
on the
yeah,
weed from
yeah, the guy that was
days
on
before.
mushrooms, the
Yeah,
pilot, the
and so
pilot on
now we're seeing this
mushrooms.
lady who's like, "Yeah, I took a couple bong rips. I'm sitting in a puddle of blood. You finally came for me
Mhm,
24 hours now. I'm gonna shank myself in the neck, and I'm gonna blame it on the weed." And
mhm.
so, obviously, there's no winners in this article. I feel as bad. First of all, I feel terrible for the family of the victim, and I
Yes.
also, I don't. I'd like to see less of these defenses moving forward because I don't think it destigmatizes cannabis to have the cannabis murder defense or the cannabis I turned off the airplane engine defense. I think those things can continue to reinforce some antiquated notions around the amount of harm cannabis can and cannot do in any serving size.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I feel like maybe this particular murderer uh, chose a defense that allowed cannabis to prevent her from getting a something besides manslaughter. And I just have never heard of anybody who got so high they wanted to stab
Yeah,
somebody to death and
it's
then sit
crazy.
around for 24 hours.
Yeah, and the prohibitionists like Project Sam are going to use this to be, and I've already seen a tweet where he was talking about this and pointing to specifically to this story, stating that cannabis causes murders and whatnot, and we all know that is just total prohibitionist rhetoric, and it is just doesn't make any sense when you talk to a normal rational human being in regards to this.
I mean, I think about how there is a tendency for those in the industry to talk about cannabis in terms of it being able to do no harm. And then we have these headlines where kids are getting access to edibles, and there's
Hmm.
clearly issues. And the industry needs to take a pole position in regulating itself so that it doesn't continue to get overregulated by outsiders. But this one, even if there is some science to support this, the fact that it's getting so widely, so much, press and I'm covering it yet again.
Yes.
It seems a little sus to me, okay? And I think that if you kill somebody, you're responsible, and unless you're uh, permanently clinically insane, and even then they send you to a prison. It's just a loony bin prison. I feel really bad for the victim. I mean,
Hmm.
and here's what really comes up for me personally. Like they were dating a couple weeks. It's a crazy time to be single in America. Okay, go get yourself a good man, a good woman. Settle down. What's the matter, you? Go find a good one
There's not a
and
lot
settle
out
down.
there, bro. There's not a lot out there.
Be- Because being single these days, if you're not catching a disease, you're catching a bread knife to the neck. And so I think
Nowadays, when you catch a partner, you're liable to catch a case.
you know what? Look, I think it's hard enough to find a good one, but if you can find a good one and you can weed through the crazies, settle down. It's
Hmm.
it's a time-tested model. I don't care who you settle down with. I don't care what their pronouns are. I don't care if they have an innie or an outie, but being single is dangerous, and even in California, in LA, it can get you shanked.
Hmm. That part. I mean, but at the same time, I mean, this is in Thousand Oaks, so that's going to be under George Gascon prosecuting it. So she'll probably going to walk because they don't prosecute crime anyway. But nonetheless, we're going to go to a commercial. And we're going to be right back.